Man United have concluded their US preseason summer tour with 3 games against Everton, West Ham, Bournemouth, winning 2, drawing 1, and I came away from these 3 games with some takeaways. Some positive and some negative. So I figured let's make a video. Let's talk about what we learned from Man United's US preseason summer tour. Now, let me make this very, very clear. When it comes to preseason in general, I never really take it too seriously, and there's a reason for that, right? I'm scarred. I got PTSD. It's really as simple as that, because I'll never, ever, ever forget, for as long as I live, the 2014 preseason tour that we did in the US under Van Gaal in his first season, right? And we were coming off a really, really bad season under Moyes the year prior. Van Gaal came in after an excellent World Cup, brought a few signings, and all of a sudden, we're kind of excited again as United fans. What is Van Gaal going to bring to this team? And we played 7 games that preseason tour. We won all 7 of them. And in that tour, we played Inter, we played Roma, we played Liverpool, we played Real Madrid, etc., etc. And we went into this tour kind of playing a 3-5-2, which was what Van Gaal was known for with the Dutch, the World Cup prior. And we were excellent. Honestly, I went to one of those games. I went to the game against Real Madrid that I think still to this day holds the record for the biggest crowd at a football game in US history at the Big House in Michigan. My family drove to that game. That's how obsessed we were at the time, right? And we demolished Real Madrid, honestly, in the system. Ashley Young at wingback, Fletcher in midfield. It was crazy. And we went into the season on such a high, confident that last year was just a blip, right? This year we're going to be back. And the way we're playing in preseason, we were about to take over the league. Well, this is what happened. In our first 3 games, we won absolutely none of them. In fact, in our first 5, we won 1 game. Van Gaal scrapped the 3-5-2. I don't think we ever saw it again. And towards the end of the season, we kind of salvaged our year. We ended it really, really strong and made top 4. But everything we had done in preseason basically went out the door. And from that moment on, honestly, right, I learned never to kind of get too carried away with preseason, both in a negative sense and in a positive sense. It's really just a tool to get miles in the legs. That's really what it is, right? Get players back up to full fitness, get new players accustomed to the team. It's a bonding period before the Prem. It's a chance to kind of go abroad and appease to your international fan base. But in terms of really trying to take things away from it that will lead into the Premier League season, more often than not, don't even bother. However, there's a big caveat. I think this preseason's a little different for Man United. Why? This past season, we brought in a manager a little like, a quarter of the way through the season, right? And he came in with a totally new style of play, with a new system and a new formation that we had never played before in the last, in recent years. The squad was not accustomed to whatsoever. And Amorim had to kind of take over a team where he had no real control over signings or outgoings. And the season was a disaster. And a big thing that Amorim continued kind of pointing at was, I don't have enough time on the training pitch. I don't have enough time in training to get these guys fully drilled into my formation. That was a big thing Amorim kept pointing at, right? And ultimately, we finished 15th. We lost the Europa League final. And Amorim has been given another season, or at least he's been given next season to kind of figure it out. So if we take Amorim's qualm about not having enough time on the training pitch, in terms of not being able to get his ideas across well enough, this preseason was big for him. Right? Again, I understand it's not the be-all, end-all, but you can take things away from this, because this has really been, in the past 2-3 weeks, the most amount of time he's had with this squad without playing games every single, high-pressure Premier League games. It's the first chance he's really had to get this squad accustomed to the way he wants to play. And therefore, when I see these preseason games, I'm looking to see improvements. Not in terms of we have to win every game 6-0, everyone has to put a 10 out of 10 performance, but you want to see improvements from a tactical point of view, because Amorim has stressed so many times that he didn't get the chance to last year. So when I look at these 3 games, there's 5 things I kind of took away from it. Again, some positive, some negative. I actually took some notes. The first thing I think you can take away from this preseason US tour is that Man United are a lot fitter than they were last year. The players, the squad, they are all individually much more fit, talking athletically here, than they were 6 months ago, 4 months ago. That's a big thing, because when Amorim came into this team, he stressed that he wasn't happy whatsoever with the physical level of this squad. And I completely agree with him. For the last few years, to be honest with you, I've looked at the way Arsenal have built their squad, Liverpool have built their squad, even City in previous seasons. And clearly, legs and ability to run up and down the pitch and cover space, cover ground, run with the ball, close players down. That's a big thing in the modern game. You look at Arsenal, the squad that they've built. You have athletes from front to back. Liverpool, athletes from front to back. City, I think their decline honestly has come through the fact that they still are carrying guys like Bernardo and Gundogan and previously De Bruyne, who maybe don't have the same athletic levels that they did a few seasons back. But the best teams can run. You look at PSG, the way they press, the way they cover ground, the way they win back the ball. Chelsea, the way they played in that final, similar. Man United have had for a long time a huge problem fitness-wise. And Amorim came in and almost from day one, he said that was a big worry for him. And I think this preseason, you can see that the physical level of this side has improved. These guys look a lot fitter. The tempo of the game feels a lot more urgent, which I think comes through a rise in fitness. They are winning the ball higher up the pitch, which we'll talk about in a second, because that's my second point. They are kind of running through midfields and creating chances that way. I think you are seeing the wingbacks get up and down the pitch. It looks like a much more fit team. And I think improving the physical floor of the team is super important, right? Because clearly Man United from a technical point of view and a physical point of view are lacking. That's the reason why they finished 15th, right? But I feel like if you can at least elevate the physical side of the game with Man United, all of a sudden you are kind of bridging the gap with a lot of teams. Because if your team can run and your team can battle and your team can compete in 2025, I think that's half the game right there. I genuinely do. Now, tactics, quality, they all come into play, which we're going to talk about in a bit. But I think getting the physical level of the squad right was a big thing for Amorim to address this summer. And personally, after 3 games, I look at the squad and I look at certain individuals in general, right? I think that has improved. So the first takeaway I have is that this squad looks a lot more fit. The second takeaway kind of plays into the first. I think our press is a lot more coherent. I think Man United press as a unit and understand the way Amorim wants to win the ball a lot better than they did 4 months ago. Numerous times during this preseason, we saw Man United, whether it was Ahmad, whether it was Bruno Fernandes, whether it was Kobbie, force opposition into mistakes in their own half. Sometimes in their own box, whether they were trying to play it out from the back, whether it was the goalkeeper with the ball at his feet, whether it was through midfield. Oftentimes, we did see Man United press in what was like a 5-2-3, win the ball up high, and create opportunities through their high press. And I think that's big because, again, it leads into another point, right? But if you can win the ball up in the opposition's own box, all of a sudden, when you win it, you're just in front of a goal. And we saw it a few times, right? The biggest example was Bruno Fernandes' goal against West Ham when Kobbie Mainoo intercepts a pass from Areola, plays it into Bruno's feet, and Bruno obviously has an amazing finish, but he's even allowed to express that kind of quality because of how high up the pitch we won it, right? Now, in terms of opposition bypassing our press, I do feel like at times still it's a weakness for us, and that actually showed in that same game against West Ham when people will look at Aiden Heaven and the way he decided to defend against Bowen, and I can completely hear that, right? He should have dealt with Bowen maybe a bit better in that situation, but how does it even kind of evade our front 3 press to then lead into midfield? I think it was Souček who picked it up with nobody on him. He can run, he can play Bowen in behind, and he can score. How did they even evade that initial press in the first place? I think that's still a question mark because I think if you can kind of bait the press and evade it, all of a sudden we're at 6s and 7s. We're a little too open. But I have been impressed with the regularity in which Man United are kind of creating advantageous situations from the opposition's own half. Because look, you can talk about build-up, you can talk about control in midfield. Those are all ways of eventually breaking down teams. But being able to win the ball up high and create moments from that early initial high press, that's going to be a threat that I think United will score a few goals on. We saw it last season as well too, right? Ahmad is one of the most vicious pressers from the front I think the Premier League has. Now all of a sudden you're adding Mateus Cunha, you're adding Bryan Mbeumo, potentially adding Sesko, you got Dorgu coming off the left. If United can start winning those high possession plays that much more often, I think all of a sudden United has a different dimension to their attack. And it's interesting because, again, I think this has to play into part with the first point. The fitter you are, the more aggressive you can be, because if you kind of commit, all of a sudden you have the fitness to make up for the fact if they beat you on the in build-up, right? So I think those two kind of play into each other, right? But the fitness and the press for Man United, I think, are two undeniable positives from this team. It's something that I have been impressed with by Amorim and by his players. Now, if we do go into negatives, the first negative for me is our build-up. Our build-up for me is still a massive, massive issue. And I guess it's a conversation for you guys in the comments below. Is this more personnel or is this structural? So is it more on Amorim and the way he sets his team up to play, or is it on individual quality in midfield, or is it maybe a mix of both? I feel when Man United build up from the back, and I felt this since last season, it was alarming to me in the Europa League final as well too, and it really reared its ugly head against Everton as well. I feel like when Man United play out from the back, we have less options on the ball than other teams. What do I mean by that? I see Lenny Yoro pick up the ball at right center back, and I feel like even at the lowest level of football, you're taught that how important triangles are when you're kind of passing. You want two options on either side of you so that you can pass it here or here, and then that connection between those two players is available as well too. You always want at least, for the most part, two passing options to play to. When I look at Man United sometimes, I genuinely think like we don't create enough passing options for our players. Because Lenny Yoro will pick up the ball, right? He'll probably get it from De Ligt if he's playing central center back, right? And he receives it on his right foot. He opens up, he receives it on his right foot. He looks up, and neither midfielder is really in a position to kind of ask for the ball because they're kind of getting marked. It's a 2-on-2 press. So they're not able to kind of play it into their feet. They could go back to De Ligt, but I mean, then you're just kind of going back and forth. The only real progressive pass at their disposal is playing it out wide. So Yoro will pick up the ball, receive it, open up, and the only option he'll have is, let's say, Amad Diallo. So Amad will receive it on the touchline from Yoro. But then in that situation, Amad is hugging the touchline. So think about it, right? If he receives it, he can either get it on his left, pass it right back to Yoro, which again, it's not progressive. You can hope that he plays it kind of narrow into the path of a midfielder. But again, I feel like our midfielders never have the chance to make themselves available because of how they're being marked. Or you have to hope that Amad can kind of play his way out of a tight situation on the touchline and get down the line. But imagine Amad receiving on the touchline. The opposition fullback is probably already going to be on him. So yes, he can receive it on his right, but that's probably playing directly into an incoming defender. I really wish I had the tactics board like James Alcott so I could kind of show you what I'm visualizing here and what I'm seeing, but just try and follow my point of view here, right? Amad is receiving it. He can either go backwards, receive it on his left, go backwards, hope to play a ball in the middle, but there's a good chance that that guy isn't even available in a position to pick it up, or kind of go receive it on his right and hope that he can kind of buy a yard of space to avoid the incoming defender. Now, the one, and I feel like that's the case throughout our build-up, right? Whether that's De Ligt, whether that's Yoro, whether that's Maguire, whether that's whoever, right? I don't think they receive enough passing options progressively for them to actually successfully build up from the back, for us to actually sustain attacks. I feel like more often than not, it ends up just kind of going back and forth, back and forth. We look for that pass into midfield. On occasion, what will end up happening is one of the two number 10s will drop deep, receive a ball through the lines, and then they can start getting played. But then again, they're also being followed by the opposition defender. So more often than not, Mbeumo can receive it or Cunha can receive it, but right on his back is a defender. And then you really have to trust that our players can kind of combine one-touch passing. And on a few occasions, especially in the Everton game, we did create some chances through our intricate, quick one-touch passing. It was an amazing chance for Mbeumo. I think Cunha had one as well too. When Man United can kind of get playing like that, it's great, but it doesn't happen enough. More often than not, what does end up happening is Yoro will look up. He won't see a player into his path like a midfielder. He doesn't want to go back because then we're just kind of recycling possession. And what we'll end up doing a lot of the time is just kind of booting the ball long into the path of our center forward. Hopefully he wins it. And if he doesn't win it, we try and pick up the second ball. We try and pick up the loose pass. Now, is there a right or wrong way to win football games? No. If that can work, like at Sporting, Amorim clearly found some success with Gyökeres in that sense, in terms of just booting balls up to Gyökeres and hoping that he can kind of win second balls or win the initial pass into him. But I feel like more often than not, Man United kind of just get forced into that long ball more out of necessity than out of plan. I really think that's the case. Like some people can say, oh, that's Amorim's game plan. But I don't think it is. I think Amorim's game plan is to patiently build out from the back and eventually get it down the wings. But because of the numerical disadvantage we find ourselves in when we kind of play like that, more often than not, it just ends up in us playing a long ball up to our striker and hoping that he can make something out of it. And I'm sorry, personally, I don't think that's sustainable. I don't think Man United will win a lot of football games playing that way. They have a lot of quality in certain positions. Clearly, the signings of Mbeumo, Cunha, and maybe a center forward will really improve United. But I don't think Man United are going to be beating many good teams this season if their main kind of way of breaking teams down is just playing around the back, looking for options in midfield, not finding it, and then just booting it up long. Maybe that's his plan of Sesko, a 6'4", 6'5" target man that can kind of hold up the ball more regularly than a Højlund could perhaps, and get us up the pitch that way. But I would really love to see Amorim find a better solution of playing through the midfield. I think we're one of the only teams I watch in 2025 that don't play through our midfield at all. It all comes down the wings or long to our striker. Why? That kind of leads into the next point. Our midfield is horrendous. I'm sorry, it's as simple as that, right? Let's not try and make friends here. Let's not cut corners. Our midfield is a problem. Whether it's Kobbie, whether it's Ugarte, whether it's Bruno Fernandes, whether it's Casemiro. I am not convinced by any pairing that you can kind of find with the four of them. Not at all. Bruno Fernandes is, in my opinion, going to turn into an elephant in the room this season very, very quickly. Because clearly he's a great player. He's arguably been our best player this tour. He scored goals, he created chances. But I don't really think he has a place in this team. I feel like when I watch Bruno in this system, he just kind of exists. Like he's just kind of there and you give him the ball and he makes things happen. But I don't really think his role in Amorim's eyes is as one of the 210s, because clearly I think he's bought Cunha and Mbeumo for those roles, despite Cunha and Mbeumo rotating up front last night. And I don't see Bruno at all being a long-term vision in midfield, because I think from a physical point of view and from a composure point of view as well too, I don't think Bruno has what it takes to play as a deeper midfielder at a high level over 38 games. Bruno Fernandes, for me, will become an elephant in the room this season. I'm not trying to say, look, we should have sold him, because at the end of the day, if he didn't want to go to Saudi for 100 million, that's on him. We can't force somebody out the club, apparently not. But I think very quickly in this system, right? That's what I'm trying to tell you guys here. In the system, not in any other system, but in the system, I don't really see Bruno's natural fit. I don't really see where he just kind of has a place tailor-made for him. I feel like we are kind of just trying to shift him in because he's Bruno Fernandes, because he's a brilliant player. But I feel that honestly, there will be issues caused because of that. Casemiro, I mean, look, the Europa League run last season was decent. He had some big moments in that competition. But I just think I look at Casemiro and I'm like, yeah, if we're starting you regularly in the Premier League, we are going to be in trouble. Which leaves us with Kobbie and Ugarte, who I like as a duo better than I do Casemiro and Bruno based on the 3 games this tour. I think those two played on average better than the other two. But even with them, I find massive issues. I feel like with Kobbie, I'm a big Kobbie Mainoo fan. I'm a big believer in his talent. But I feel like in this system, playing the role he does under Amorim, the games pass him by way too regularly. I honestly don't think he has enough of an influence on the game. And a reason for that is he's not really somebody that's comfortable in terms of just recycling play and being high volume passes and touches and just keeping the game ticking. That's not really his game. Kobbie is a player you want to give the ball to and allow him to kind of carry forward and weave his way through tight defenses and create. I feel Kobbie is better as an 8 rather than a deep lying midfielder. At the 6, or in this deeper position, I think he's okay. Like, he does play some nice progressive passes at times, line splitting passes, but I feel like we're massively underutilizing him. And I don't think he is the ideal player in that role. I think if you could find a better player for that position, you should do it, because with Kobbie, I feel like the game just kind of passing by. You rarely kind of see Kobbie and think, yeah, he's really bossed this game. He's really run this midfield. And a big part of that is also due to the guy next to him, Manuel Ugarte. Now, you guys know where I stand with this guy. I've made it no secret since the minute we signed him. But what I continue trying to urge you guys is stop looking at my analysis of players as like a bias or an agenda or a criticism, right? I'm just saying what I see. I don't care about Manuel Ugarte, right? I didn't care about him before he joined Man United. I had no reason to dislike him. Like, I just say what I see. With Manuel Ugarte, this guy is uncomfortable on the football. And for a midfielder, I find that to be a massive, massive issue, especially in this kind of system when we're playing deeper and we're trying to build out from the back and our center backs are looking at our midfielders to come deep, receive it, and get the ball playing. And Ugarte tries and does that, and immediately you can see the discomfort. You can see he's not really scanning like an elite level midfielder would. Oftentimes he gets his pocket picked. He's not the greatest passer, period. I just find this guy to be a real liability at times, right? Does he have his uses in any football team? Sure, if you're in a game where you're not going to have much of the ball and you just need someone to kind of break up play and play 2-yard passes to your more talented players. Okay, I can see Ugarte in a side like, I don't know, West Ham or something, or Sporting like he used to play at, being useful in that kind of sense. But for the way Man United wants to play, and for the way any elite level team aspires to play, I just don't see how Manuel Ugarte can be a key player in your team. I'm so sorry to say it, guys. You guys can say I have an agenda. I don't really care. I don't have an agenda against any of these guys. For me, if they play well for Man United, I like them. If they don't, I'm going to say it how it is. And with Ugarte, I just feel like it's too obvious at this point that could he be a squad player? Sure. I mean, should we even be buying squad players for that price? Probably not, right? But can he be a squad player now that we have him? I guess. But relying on this guy week in, week out in midfield, I'm sorry, man. Man United will not be doing anything this season with the midfield we currently have. All 4 of them, right? You can think they're decent players individually, but as a unit, I think we're in trouble, man. I think we're in trouble. Like, again, I ask you guys, do you think it's more of a structural issue that we don't play through our midfield? Do you think it's a personnel issue that Ugarte and Kobbie just aren't those kinds of players? Neither is Bruno and Casemiro. What do you guys think it is? Let me know down in the comment section below, right? But I feel like our midfield is something we need to address. And it's concerning a little bit because I don't know if we are going to, right? Like, does Amorim want a midfielder? I'm sure he does. But how much are we realistically going to have to play with if we sign Sesko, for example, for 70 million, 75 million? I would imagine that after spending all that money on Sesko, Mbeumo, and Cunha, we are probably going to have to look at a lower tier of midfielder in the market after those 3 deals are done. And I love Sesko, I love Mbeumo, and I think Cunha has shown flashes this preseason. But as good as I think those 3 are, and as good as I think they could be as a trio, I'm sorry, we're going to have massive structural issues if the midfielders we currently employ are still the ones we go with going forward. Because, guys, it's not like the ball goes from point A to point C. there has to be something going on in the middle, man, right? The ball doesn't magically just go from Onana's feet to the back of the net. What's the buildup looking like? What's the process looking like? With our midfield, it's not looking like much. So I think tactically, it's something Amorim needs to improve, because I don't think he's doing his midfielders many compliments with the way they want to play. But also, I look at the midfielders and I struggle to kind of see much upside from a lot of them. I think in different systems, I think in Kobbie in a different setup, in a 3-man midfield would look amazing. He's shown that at varying degrees throughout his career. Bruno Fernandes, we know, in the correct setup, is one of the best creative midfielders in the world. But in a deeper 2 like Man United play, I'm a little nervous, man. I'm a little concerned. But let's end this takeaway video. Let's end this 5 things we learned video with one final point. I want to give a big shout out to Patrick Dorgu, because I think Dorgu has been our best player this tour. I think Dorgu has been the player that has stood out the most. Now, Patrick Dorgu was a player that came in January. Amorim's only signing up to that point. Signed from Lecce. And I think last season, at times, he was getting a bit of criticism that I did feel was a little unwarranted. I think it was a little harsh, right? Did Patrick Dorgu light the world up last season? Not really. Was he like exceptional? Not really. Did he have problems in his game that you could kind of correctly criticize? Absolutely. But I just look at Dorgu and I think he was extremely raw last season. I still think he's pretty raw, but last season, extremely raw. I think he's got a lot of very promising physical tools. I think he's actually a decent crosser of the ball as well, too. I think he is capable of really whipping in a nice pass. I like his dedication to kind of driving forward. He improves the physical level of the squad because he is a very good athlete. I think there's a lot to work with Patrick Dorgu, right? Do I think he's Nuno Mendes reincarnated? Not really. I mean, maybe. I have no idea. Like, I just think it's a little too early to kind of make massive sweeping statements about the guy, especially 6 months coming into a brand new team, a struggling side, a formation he wasn't really comfortable in. And at Lecce, he was really playing more as a wide man than a wingback. Regardless, though, I actually think he was one of our better players in the Europa League final. And this preseason, I think you can clearly see is a player that has taken a lot of personal stock in improving himself, but B, also quite clearly has learned the system and his role in it a lot better. I do think there's some players that, whether you like it or not, will struggle in the system no matter what. I just don't think it suits them. But I think Dorgu has really kind of taken this left wing back role like a duck to water. And this tour, he's scoring goals, he's creating chances, he's locking down opposition wingers, he's bombing up and down the wing. I'm really excited to see Patrick Dorgu this season, because I think if I were to make a video on the players I expect to improve the most this season, maybe I might, I think he would be in that top 10. I really expect to see a surge in performance level from Patrick Dorgu. Another guy who I thought was ridiculous this tour is Leny Yoro. Again, a player that came in for big money last season, really highly regarded in France, but maybe had a few moments last year where, again, new system, missed the beginning of the year through injury, had that one game against Sulemana that had a lot of people writing him off. But I think since that game against Sulemana and Southampton, Yoro has rarely put a foot wrong. Again, I thought he was our best player in the Europa League final. And this preseason, his level has gone up another gear, man. He has been flat out ridiculous. Defensively, aerially, on the ball, playing out from the back, driving forward. I look at Yoro and I really think to myself, oh my goodness, Man United might have a real star in the making with this guy. I truly believe when I look at Yoro, this guy's ceiling is extremely, extremely high. And already his current level is pretty damn good as well, too. So look, it's not all nightmares and moaning out of the 3 games, right? There are some positives. I do think it's important as well, too, to be honest, though, and say that there are issues that I think if they kind of pursue into the season, we are going to struggle again. Maybe not 15th, but we are going to struggle to really make a mark. But now, I think that those 3 games have been shown. It's up to the board now, right? They've gone all in for a center forward, it appears. They've fully committed to Sesko, and I'm a fan of Sesko. I'll continue saying it. But that midfield situation, I really, really hope they don't neglect it. I really, really, really hope they don't neglect it. Because, bro, you can put anyone up front. If the midfield ain't midfielding, I don't want to hear it. We're going to be in problems, regardless if we have up front. MSN, it could be Mbappe, Neymar, it could be whoever. If the midfield can't properly take a chokehold over the game and run games, doesn't matter who you have up front, you're going to struggle to consistently win games. So that's my takeaways from the preseason tour. I've enjoyed it. Don't take too much out of it. Like I said, it is just preseason at the end of the day. It's not make or break, but a few interesting things to kind of think about heading into the new campaign. Let me know what you guys think about my 5 points. Let me know what you guys have thought about Man United's preseason this year. And also tell me who's been the most impressive player for you this summer preseason. Like, share, subscribe, guys, and I will see you guys very, very soon. Peace.